You may have noticed I was taking notes. I always like to take notes when people do introductions so that I can make sure I interleave with those. So in conjunction with knowing where the restrooms are, just a quick question, Pastor Marcus took away. If we had to leave here for any reason, do you have a designated rally point where we should all meet?
No.
Where would you like us to all meet? Courtyard out there.
Across the square in front of the...
Out the door and across the square in front of the auditorium.
Perfect.
Across the square.
Perfect. Great, and there are entrances, as you can see over there, but there's also, I believe we could get out through the kitchen if we had to as well. Is that
Yes.
correct? Great, good. So I had a colleague who ran a housing agency nonprofit in the East Bay. That's actually where I'm from. And that is actually how she would start every staff meeting. Every staff meeting would start with a quick little moment of preparedness. She actually had some little laminated cards that she'd pop open and she'd do a little quiz to her staff. Where's the gas shutoff located? Do you guys know where the water shutoff is located? Do you know where our rally point is? You know, what's the quick acronym for, and that was it, just like one minute preparedness. So if I had to leave now for some reason, I left you with that tip, so you could take that tip back with you. I've already done some good, so that's awesome. So yay, thank you. I am Lars Eric Holm, and I am often known as the disaster nerd. And the reason my logo is my hat is because I'm very famous for my hat. Every time I attended meetings and I had to report, I actually used to have to report on behalf of multiple agencies. So I used to work with 211 Alameda County. Would everybody please raise your hand if you know about 211? Have you ever heard of the number 211? If you haven't, 211 is a number that you can call all across the entire country, including Canada, to get help with human resources, or healthcare, or childcare, or things like that. I used to be the disaster aspect of it. In many areas, 211 plays a very important role in disasters. You'll actually see that in one of the upcoming slides as that comes up. In San Francisco, there's also 311, just so you're aware of that. But when I attended meetings, I'd be like, okay, so on behalf of 211, here's my report. I was also the chair of ALCO VOAD, that's Alameda County's Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters. Okay, reporting on VOAD, putting on my other hat. So we all often wear multiple hats, right? So I kind of became famous for that. Yes, you can tell I'm a nerd. Now, what I want to kind of cover today actually is going to be focused on personal preparedness, but I'd like to have you consider this. Consider the fact that if you are yourselves personally prepared to deal with any kind of emergency, my definition of disaster is deliberately very loosey-goosey. It's very flexible. It could be anything ranging from a major earthquake, as Mike mentioned, to a diaper emergency. I mean, it's been a long time since my kids have been that young, but it has happened. So you want to be able to have skills to prepare for that kind of thing. In fact, I often think of that as being a culture of preparedness. A lot of the agencies I work for, that was a term that we like to use now, is building a culture of preparedness. Where being ready for things is just part of how you operate every day. Now, it's kind of an odd coincidence. I grew up in Alaska, and I lived for about 18 months of that time in a Yupik village about halfway up the coast. And there's actually a word in the Yupik language, and that word literally, the word is called Utralanabuta, and that translates into English pretty much as always getting ready. So when people say things like it takes a village, I lived in a village, so I know what that's kind of like. So I remember seeing the salmon drying to be dried and stowed away. I remember in the winter when the first mukluk, the first walrus, was brought in by the hunters, and my sister and I helped pass out to the rest of the village because they were ringing a bell. So I actually had experienced that kind of thing, that idea of just everybody's just taking care of each other. So I just want to make sure I shared that, because that kind of is I kind of feel with this current audience that's going to kind of resonate. Oh yes, good. I had done that, good. Real quickly, I've talked to a couple of folks. Please raise your hand if you've ever undergone, at any time in the past, a NERT or CERT training. Please raise your hand if you've ever done a NERT or CERT. Good, okay, it's not a surprise. And for those of you that didn't raise your hand, in San Francisco, NERT stands for Neighborhood Emergency Response Teams. Nationally, it's called CERT, Citizen Emergency Response Teams or Community Emergency Response Teams. I was telling somebody that I actually knew when I did a training for Kaiser a while back. They have one for their buildings. They call it BERT. It's the Building Emergency Response Teams. Guess who their mascot is? You guys know Bert and Ernie? It's Bert. Wearing an orange vest and a hard hat. So he's it's an awesome kind of thing. Great, all right. So how many people, raise your hand if you know what the word listos means? Listos, because you notice there's a big thing here that says, oh, by the way, how are the sight lines? I checked this. Most people can see pretty well. This is not going to be slide-centered, and I'll describe the slides if you can't have trouble seeing. But also, if I talk too fast, throw a napkin at me so I know to slow down. Don't throw any cups, that would hurt, but a napkin is fine. So, listos. Better than that. What is listos?
Listos. I mean, ready.
Yes, good, exactly. In what language?
Spanish.
Precisely. So listos español for ready. So there's a program, there's actually a website called Listos California. We're going to see that in a moment. But it was a disaster preparedness curriculum that was developed specifically for Spanish-speaking citizens because they were being kind of overlooked. Much of my career has been focused on disaster preparedness for folks that haven't always been included. Access and functional needs, for example. You know, not everybody has a white picket fence with 2.4 children and 1 dog and 1 cat, right? So Listos California, listoscalifornia.org has lots of resources. In fact, one of the resources, this presentation is kind of organized. Let me open up my book. You can actually go to the website and there are PDFs. And I can show this to you folks later. I'm trying not to leave the camera because I know I'm being recorded, but if I can hold it for the camera. See that? So those of you who are watching, here's what it looks like. It's basically available in 17 languages. And it's basically about 5 cents. So basically go to listoscalifornia.org. There's so many resources, it's almost too much. It's actually fantastic stuff. And we're going to be kind of covering the outline for that kind of thing today. As Mike kindly mentioned, I'm currently representing SF CARD, Communities Responding to Disasters. And yep, Loma Prieta did a lot of things for a lot of folks, right? 89 was a landmark year for a lot of disaster preparedness. In fact, they actually had what they call the non-profit preparedness movement, which is very much about making sure that non-profits were able to stay on their feet and provide the very important services. So I've done work with food banks, you know, and housing agencies and child care agencies, and child care agencies for children who have developmental disabilities. I've done trainings for Lions Center for the Blind, Deaf Counseling Active Referral Agency. It's important to keep this thing as flexible as possible. Now, people like to talk about disasters and the things that might happen. Right? You know, maybe there'll be a house fire, or a landslide, or an earthquake, or a tsunami, or a wildfire. And a lot of these conversations have a tendency to be very disaster-centered. The one thing I want to kind of start off with here is actually giving you guys, keeping in mind what you're actually preparing for is disruptions. So there's a wonderful little book called How to Prepare for Everything. I actually got a signed copy by the author. I should have brought it with me, darn it. I still have it at home. But and he actually, this is actually a starting point is, don't focus on disasters, focus on disruptions. Because really the issue is, okay, I don't have water. I don't have heat. I don't have power. If you have power-based medical needs, if you have a CPAP machine, or an oxygen concentrator, or an electrical wheelchair, that's a big problem if you have lack of power for more than a day or 2 days or 3 days. So public safety power shutoffs brought that home really quickly. And that was the thing that actually took a lot of emergency managers by surprise. They were all planning for earthquakes and fires. Wait a minute, a power outage that where you flip the switch on purpose? We didn't plan for that. So a lot of what I'm going to be trying to cover today is kind of covering for all that kind of stuff. The example he likes to give is, it doesn't really matter if it was an earthquake, or a storm, or grandma backed into the power pole. If you don't have power, and that's the thing you want to kind of prepare for. So having that shift in focus, he was a great keynote speaker. It was a wonderful thing. So here's the disaster ready guide. The link is at listoscalifornia.org/resources. And we're going to be sharing the slides so you guys can click on those links directly. But if you just Google Listos California, not hard to find. So let's go ahead and get started. Listos is basically focused on having 5 steps. 5 steps. There's a lot of different ways you can divide this. So this is the way they decided to divide the cake. And those steps basically are, get alerts, make a plan, make a stay box. I'm going to cover this. It says 3 days. I'm going to comment about that. Make a go bag, help others. I suspect there's a lot of people in the room who are very focused on helping others. Huh? So we're just going to go ahead and start kind of arbitrarily with, we're going to call this step 1. They don't really need to be numbered. You just got to start somewhere, right? So on that circle, I'm going to go back a second, see a couple of people. So it's going to be get alerts, make a plan, make some kind of an emergency kit, whether it's a stay box or a go bag, and help others. Cool. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. So getting alerts. We're going to make this a little bit San Francisco centered. Where do you get your information made from? Now, I have a colleague. I actually later this month in Hayward am going to be co-teaching a preparedness series that's going to start with a longer version of what I'm doing today, with lots more detail in it. Then the next training is going to be about organizational preparedness. The training after that will be about Incident Command System, or ICS. And the fourth training on this, also on the second day will be, it's actually 2 days of this, will be on continuity of operations. So you guys are more than welcome to come chat with me about that. Because we're nerds, Ron and I, we call it Prepare You. It's kind of like a little preparedness university, but we didn't want to call it that. Plus, I can't pass it, Prepare You. It's kind of like Local Moose, right? You know, what's about you? Prepare You. So where do you get your information from? Ron likes to say, trust but verify. So go to trusted sources, but also verify that information. We've all seen cases where perfectly worthy news sources end up getting the misinformation, the wrong information. It's become an increasing problem. 211. So I used to work for them. 211, one of the things that's very critical about 211s nationally, they're part of a national organization that used to be called the Association of Information and Resource Specialists. Now it's called, I'm spacing on the new name. I'm so used to them being called AIRS, I can't remember their new name. But it's a national organization. They actually have like a Dewey Decimal System for resources, for tracking resources. You know, and I love that because over in the East Bay we have Davis Street Family Resource Center. They do vaccinations, they do childcare, they do food distribution, they do so many different things. It's kind of like when you go to the library. It's a science fiction novel that's also a mystery and it's also a romance. So it's a science fiction mystery romance. So it has several different codes that point to it, right? Same kind of thing there. Plus, it's very, very important to always vet your sources, to always verify the information. 211s are very precise about that. They're very focused on that kind of thing. So if you call 211, you might get the initial answer might be, we don't know yet. Because they're not going to tell you something that's wrong. They're going to tell you when they know it's right. And if you dial 211, that'll get you through. Click. There we go. The other thing you can do here in San Francisco is it's called Alert SF, the Alert SF notification system. So I'd like to encourage you all to please sign up for that. They put a QR code on here, which is fine. I mean, feel free to scan that, and after I'm done, I'm more than happy to bring these slides back up. But it's also pretty easy. If you text your zip code to 888-777, if you text your zip code to 888-777, that should get you signed up. Or you can just take your phone or tablet or computer and go to alertsf.org, and you can very easily create an account there. And this actually works all across the Bay Area. In fact, I'll show you guys about that one a little bit next. But I'm going to pause for a second. So 888-777, your zip code, just text that, or go to alertsf.org. And I'll just say this, I'm going to click on the next one. As you'll see here, we're going from all the way from Alameda to Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, San Benito, Monterey, Napa. If you just do Google searches on things like AC Alert for Alameda County, Alert SF I talked about, SMC Alert for San Mateo, Code Red Santa Cruz, all the counties have some kind of an alert system. How many people spend at least some time outside of San Francisco County? How many people live outside of San Francisco County? Anybody? I do. Oh, good. Okay, so go folks, right? And how many people have family outside of San Francisco County? Yeah, right? So I knew somebody, she signed up for the alert systems for her mom in Southern California. That way, if she got the alert, she could say, hey mom, did you get that? That was actually her backup system. They'll kind of carry things. So again, we'll be sharing these slides so you guys can actually access that. Or, one of my favorite things is the Bay Area Urban Area Security Initiative. UASI, BUWASI. I love saying that around October, BUWASI. Because in the world of emergency management, it's not real if it's not an acronym. I'm sorry. But there's actually a thing called alertthebay.org. I gotta make that font bigger, I think. So alertthebay.org. And it's really cool because it shows you a map. You can hover over the county in question, and that'll pop up the link that'll jump you to the alert system that you want to sign up for. So signing up for different alert systems is pretty easy. And then the final thing I'd like to recommend is check out MyShake. As Mike mentioned, we're in earthquake country, and the MyShake app is actually really pretty spiffy. I'm not going to spend as much time as I would on when I do Prepare You, I talk a bit more about my shake. I actually have screenshots, because I'm that kind of guy. I do drop, cover, and hold on, and then I take a screenshot of the alert that I'm looking at. So first I react, then I take screenshots and pictures. Don't do it the other way. Don't take a picture of something and then react. But it's nice because I now use it in my trainings. The same thing for the tsunami alert that happened in December 2024. I've got some great screenshots I can pull into my trainings now because I actually lived through that. It was nice seeing what the estimated time of the arrival for the tsunami was going to be. And the MindShake is nice because it actually has on there a little sample of what the sound sounds like. So you can kind of train yourself. You can actually do some trainings, which I'll mention again more later, having people practice. You all know what you're supposed to do for an earthquake? I like how you demonstrated that. So for those on the camera, somebody actually demonstrated this. So if you can drop to the ground. If you can't drop, then bend over. So if you're using a walker or a wheelchair, it's called lock, cover, and hold on. Look at the more details of that later. I used to teach a children's martial arts class in a martial art called Aikido, traditional Japanese martial art, which is about defending yourself without hurting other people. I once heard Aikido described as the art of turning the other cheek before it is struck. Which I like that one a lot. The idea was that not only did you not get injured, but now the person didn't actually commit a sin by actually hurting you, right? That kind of thing. So it's actually getting out of the way before you're struck. But it has a lot of falling skills. None of my kids, not once did they ever get attacked by ninjas. Never happened. Not on the way to school, none of them. But a lot of the kids I talked to fell off their bicycles. Or they fell off their skateboard, or they got clipped in field hockey, and they took a fall and didn't get hurt. So getting down low to the ground, is actually a really important thing. So during an earthquake, my little saying is, when the earth is moving, you should not be. Yes, please, yes.
But if it's no more power, any of those phone will work anymore. If it's no more power, any of the phone will work, and we together.
If there's no, okay, good. So the question is, if there's no power, will the phones be working? Possibly. It may depend on your carrier. So, for example, I know that I knew somebody who had one carrier, it wasn't AT&T like I am, and they were getting reception and I wasn't. And by the way, this was in 2019. It wasn't an earthquake. It was just the public safety power shutoffs. And the cell phone towers had finally run out of their backup batteries. So that's one reason why I'll cover the 3 days thing a little bit later, but that was actually a case of like after the day. So, having backup batteries, having other systems in place, I won't necessarily have time to dig into it too deeply today, but one thing we talk about, like we'll talk about during Prepare You, is communication. I know one agency in the southern Alameda County, which is basically right on top of the Hayward Fall. Big fall, right? You guys know about that one?
Oh, yeah.
They actually have some walkie-talkies, but they also have bicycles. They got food and water and first aid kits and radios that you can crank, and they also have bicycles. Because the feeling is, okay, the roads may not be drivable, but I can, get my bike, pick it up, get across the crack, ride it some more. And their various locations are a few miles apart. So bicycling, walking kind of hard, bicycling not so bad. So this is a good example of thinking about your situation and thinking about your concerns. Thank you. Yes?
I had a friend who was living in Los Angeles when they had that big earthquake, and all of their cell phone frequencies were taken over by the disaster areas, by the disaster people. I mean, the fire departments and all of these took over all the cell phone channels. The only things that worked were the landlines, and I'm concerned that the landlines are just being left to get away with disappearing because they're harder to maintain. And I think that if this is still the case, that the emergency agencies will take over the cell phones, it would seem to me that there should be a real concern for preserving landlines.
And I'm going to summarize the question for the rest of the room and for the camera. But was this the Northridge earthquake, was it? The one down in Los Angeles? Yeah. So the Northridge earthquake, people found that they could not talk on their cell phones because the emergency communications have taken priority. So fire services, police, other people's cell phones just basically stopped working. Did I rephrase that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, I want to make sure I had that accurately. Yeah, so that's the thing. In fact, actually, one of the tips you'll sometimes hear is text, don't talk. So try texting if you can't talk to somebody, and just be aware. In fact, we're actually going to So hold that thought, actually. We got slides, we got an outline. I'm not compelled to follow it. I love having, what's happening right now is exactly what I want to have happen. So I'm going to hold that thought. Don't let me forget when I get to the part about making emergency contacts. Because there's one important story I want to tell, but I think it's better at that time. So I'm going to hold that thought and cross my fingers so I don't forget. Yeah, so shake alert's very handy. I got an alert, shake alert for that big earthquake that had happened a while back. It didn't actually cause anything down here, but shake alert will sometimes tell you the magnitude is higher than it ends up being. And it may, you want to take action for something that ends up not happening because it has to move so fast. You know, it takes time for the number crunching to happen. So it's going to let you know now while you still have time to drop cover, hold on, before the shaking actually reaches you. It's because they have a sensor network all the way up and down the entire West Coast. It's very similar to some systems they have in Japan. And they just have some news sources. So there's 211 again. Social media, just be careful. Make sure the people you're following on social media are people that are trustworthy and not, you know, your crazy Uncle Ned that likes to post conspiracy theories, perhaps, you know, kind of thing. KCBS is one of the stations that you can tune into all across the Bay Area. So that is 106.9 FM, 740 AM. So one radio I had at my work had those numbers marked off with a Sharpie marker. It was one of those tuners that ran across horizontally. Or you just put a sticker on. Just put a sticker on your radio. Siren systems, you know, some cities have siren systems. The problem I have with siren systems, I live in Oakland, so I hear the sirens that go off every Wednesday, you know. I've looked it up, what they're supposed to mean. I can never remember. I can never remember what the codes are. Now, some people in coastal communities, they have little signage that tell people train on that. The most important thing I can say about sirens, if you're in a place that does have a siren system, San Francisco currently does not. San Francisco used to, doesn't anymore. They're looking into possibly doing it. It's expensive. But mainly the sirens will let you know, all right, something's going on. I wonder what it is. Let's look at my trusted sources. By the way, the reason San Francisco and other cities don't have siren systems currently was they got hacked into. People were hacking into them and setting them off when there wasn't anything happening. And the cost of refurbishing them so they're not hackable is not cheap. So it's a cost-benefit analysis going on right now. Okay, so any questions about alerts or stories or things like that? Good, I'm going to remember the phone thing because phone thing is going to come up. Make a plan. So making a plan can be basically pretty simple. In fact, I like to just basically indicate that making a plan is as simple as just making lists. So what are your needs? What are your concerns? What are the things that are important to you? And then, just kind of knowing, do you know how to get out of your neighborhood? My wife grew up in Boulder Creek in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Okay, you guys, I heard the boom, it's perfect. If Highway 9 is down, you ain't got nowhere else to go. There are no alternative routes to drive. It's going to be a tough hike even, right? Which means, going back to alerts, the minute you get that alert, okay, we don't know, we're going down. Even if you don't get the alert, what's that smell? Okay, let's pack up, Mom, let's go. Go sooner rather than later if you're in an area like that. Last time, check out your family. Do you have a meeting point? So I'm normally in the East Bay, especially my prior incarnation. My wife actually works in a laboratory in South San Francisco. My youngest daughter actually works at an immigration law firm in San Francisco. So my wife and my youngest daughter have a point on this side of the bay to meet up. My oldest daughter and I are on the other side of the bay. We have a point to meet up. Then we have ways of trying to communicate that might not be cell phone. So that's not that we're okay. Just because my wife remembers not being able to. She actually had just crossed the Bay Bridge and gotten home, walked into the house, and that's a normal period to happen. So she missed that, dodged that bullet. Having important information written down, just having stuff written down can be really, really easy. How am I doing on time here? Oh, I'm doing good, okay. It is going to be a little bit tough because I got to hold the microphone at the same time, but what am I holding up here? A napkin or a handkerchief. I'm the kind of guy that carries a bandana in his back pocket all the time. I like to make it be a light-colored one if possible. Here's a plain one. Now, what do I have here? Sharpie marker, right? So can you all see, can you all imagine? Can Lars struggle? Can Lars struggle? Lars Eric struggle? Can you see how a Sharpie marker, there we go, that's a good puppetry, and a bandana might work well together? What kinds of things would you write on your bandana, perhaps?
Help.
Help, good. What else? SOS, excellent. Anything else?
Okay.
Okay, very good. It's good to let people know you're okay. Any other thoughts?
Where are you going?
Nice, thank you. We evacuated to the library or the park or something like that. We have 2 dogs and a cat. Please save our goldfish. Actually, I've had presentations from animal rescue folks. They've rescued some very, very expensive koi from a pond from a wildfire. Some people recognize, they know how to rescue reptiles. Horses, boy, that's a whole thing. Livestock, that's a very important thing. So a Sharpie marker and a handkerchief can be a really, really important tool. Plus, people who are first aid oriented. Good, you heard it. Tourniquet. Tourniquet. Plus, somebody from the public health department where in Alameda County, she actually noticed this. Okay, I'm not going to mark my face up, so let me put that down. Here's the cap. Okay, I'm not doing very well right now. Some days I get a really loud whistle out of that. There we go. So you should able to make it into a whistle. Now the same public health department actually had created some of these. And I'm going to hold this up to the folks on camera first who are seeing this, and I'm going to walk around the room with a bit. So don't be scared if you're watching this on video. I'm going to come right back. Can you guys all see this? So this is basically information that you might want people to know. It's got a place for phone numbers. Isn't that nice?
Great.
It's got a place for medications. Because I don't know about you, but I can never remember that stuff, right? It's got a place for just general notes, things you might want people to know. So, I kind of have this basically as a prop that I kind of keep to show people, because one street fair a long time ago, don't jump me back, here I am. I actually showed this to a 10-year-old boy who said, wow, I like that. And he borrowed my Sharpie marker, and he pulled out his handkerchief, and right there on the spot, he made one for his grandmother. He had some phone numbers, he had some other information. He had English and Spanish phrases written on it, because English was not her first language. We all know what happens to your language capacity in disaster, right? Whoosh, goes right out the window. So just basically making sure that you actually have this stuff written down. That's plans are only good as a practice, so actually practice your plans. My colleague Ron likes to say practice makes, and he likes to say practice makes permanent. Practice makes permanent. So if you basically make this part of your cultural preparedness in your everyday life, then it's just something you just naturally do. It's not a scary thing, it's not a frightening thing. Earthquake drill. So we talked about drop, cover, and hold on, and lock, cover, and hold on, right? So I don't want anybody to necessarily throw themselves to the floor, but what I'd like to do right now is where you're at, basically do a practice, sort of like drop, cover, hold on, basically where you're at, just kind of bend down and cover your head and eyes. You ready? You're shaking now. Shake, 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 shake. It's shaking, shaking. So close your eyes. Cover your head with your hands. All right. Shaking stopped. You're going to sit up right now. Now, the next thing I'd like to recommend is shake, look, and listen. I learned this years ago, back in 2009. Shake, look, and listen. So one of the first things you would do after this is done is shake yourself off a little bit. Why? Yeah, just like that. I like that. Oh, I wish I was on camera. That was a great shake. That was a great, good shaking. Good. Nice shaking, folks. Yeah, excellent. Why? Why am I asking you to shake?
Glass.
Very good. Glass, he says. Now, why would I not do this? Oh. Yes, right? So you shake the glass off. Any other thoughts about this, though? Why you may want to shake? Yes?
Well, you're also calming your nervous system when you shake.
You're calming your nervous system when you shake. I had a yoga instructor say precisely that. It gets you back inside your body. Look, what are some of the things you're looking for? Fires, broken things. Exits, good. So you're basically looking for people who might need help and exits and all that kind of. Listen, what are you listening for?
Gas.
Calls for help, good.
The sound of like gas or water leaking.
Sound of gas or water leaking. Shh, right, good. So shake, look, and listen. That's the other thing I always like to recommend about this. Now, why is drop, cover, hold on. Why is it recommended? I think there's a time you bring in the Northridge earthquake too, by the way. Like I said, when the earth is moving, you should not be.
Standing.
Yeah, standing. Standing, you might get thrown to the ground. The leading cause of injury in earthquakes is you get thrown to the ground and you get hurt because a lot of people, I mean, even I know how to fall, I could still. And broken glass. So the Northridge earthquake, one of the leading causes of injury was people broken glass on their feet because it happened at night. So that's why they often recommend you have like some slippers or something like that nearby, or some shoes by your bed. Cover your feet up before you start walking around. I'm the kind of guy, because I'm a disaster after all, I got this cool little flashlight that I can carry. It's like it's shaped like a pen. It's got clipped like a pen. It's a really nice flashlight. In fact, my wife was using hers. These are stocking stuffers I gave for Christmas about 3 years ago. I found these at the Hallmark store by the cash register. So again, cultural preparedness is keeping your eyes open. Like, could I use that? That's the thing I always kind of like to recommend. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry. Going back. Going forward, going back. Ah, come on. Too many clicks. Earthquakecountry.org. So if you guys want to focus specifically on earthquakes, earthquakecountry.org is the website for the Earthquake Country Alliance. They are the folks that do the Great Shakeout every year. Let me know if you guys know about the Shakeout, the Great Shakeout. Every October, right? Always the third Thursday. It's the world's largest earthquake drill. All right. Now, on this guide that I showed you guys on page 4, they actually have a place where you can put your emergency contacts. So it's got the name, work, school, address, cell phone, email, home phone. And it's nice having that kind of thing in the workbook. Why would you want to have it written down on paper? Hey, I got my phone, I can just look it up, right?
Battery may die.
Battery may die. And I carry a backup battery because I'm that kind of a nerd. But see, I actually am old enough. I not only remember what floppies are, I remember what floppies were. Actually, floppy. So us people who've been around technology for a long time, we like technology, but we don't trust it. So I'm the kind of guy that's always carried a slip of paper with phone numbers on it inside his wallet, just because my memory isn't what it used to be either. You know, plus under disasters, you sometimes actually lose your memory, right? So just having stuff kind of written down or nearby or on the handkerchief, you know, Sharpie marker and handkerchief is very robust. Now, I think this kind of ties into what you were saying earlier about people's cell phones and stuff being down. Notice the part about how they say having a out-of-area emergency contact. Have you guys heard that tip before? Have an out-of-area emergency contact? Oakland Hills fire, 2 years after the Loma Prieta earthquake. My family in Sweden, you can probably guess from my name, Lars, my first name's Lars Eric. You know, I've got a lot of family back in Sweden. And they were panicking because by the time you translated, you know, into meters and square kilometers and stuff, they thought the entire state was up in flames. And, you know, we could not, within the Bay Area, making phone calls was really, really tough. Like I had trouble calling some friends inside, everything was kind of broken down. Calling outside the Bay Area, oddly enough, worked rather well. And it's an odd little quirk of the technology. I actually did a senior center training about a year ago, and there was a former engineer with Pac Bell. That right there tells you how far back she went. She'd been an engineer for Pac Bell, back when it was still Pac Bell, right? So I asked her, okay, you know, that used to be true back then, and in these days of like VoIP and internet and stuff, you know, is that still true? She said, actually it still is. It has a lot to do with bandwidth. It also has to do with which circuits are being used. So having an out-of-area contact is somebody that you might be able to text or possibly even call, say, hey, we're okay. You know, please everybody else know. And that's the point of contact everybody else will call. So my mom lives in another state, and that's how my family in Sweden found out we were all okay. Because I was able to get through to my mom, she was able to tell them we were okay. And they needed to call her because we had done that little bit of planning. That little bit of having that designated contact. So just writing things down, Just having those emergency contacts, out-of-town contacts, emergency contacts. And this is a case where social media sometimes plays a good role too. I had a colleague at the dojo I used to practice at who was visiting Japan, having a marvelous time. And then there was an earthquake, followed by a tsunami, followed by a reactor meltdown. It was Fukushima. Guess how he found out he was okay?
Facebook.
Bingo! You've heard this before. Yeah, he posted on Facebook, we are okay. And this was before Facebook and Google and things would automatically put up, okay, here's how you can let people know you're all right. Now they actually do that as a feature during disasters. The social media will often put a reunification page or a status page. Let people know you're okay. This is before that. So just basically knowing how to get out, off the island. Again, I'm in the East County, so the city and island of Alameda, they have a bridge and they have a tunnel. They also have very, very good relationships with their boating community. So people that are boaters actually has a whole thing going on there. So, actually, Mike, don't let me forget that at the end. I want to close that line. There's a line at the end I want to use. Okay, any questions about that? All right, now, I'm going to go off slide for a moment. These are not the official slides. I want to play a game with you all. We already kind of played a little bit already. So this is a training we used to do called Safety Kept in Place. Skip kits are these very economical, low-cost and no-cost bags that you can make. Because the agency I worked for did a lot of training for people who are on fixed incomes or no incomes. Telling somebody who is homeless, you should buy an earthquake bag, it's really important. It's like, yeah, dude, I need food. Earthquake bag, I gotta carry it, So you're looking at maybe $10 worth of stuff. Actually, I have a bag in my car. I didn't pay a penny for it. Every single item in my bag in my car, I just as a kind of a proof of concept, is something I picked up at a resource fair, like a senior fair or preparedness fair. A couple of churches were doing these preparedness fairs for their congregations, and we're giving stuff away. Kind of thing, right? So here's the game we want to play. Do you happen to know who this guy is? It's a short video I'm going to do.
Air freshener, $1.29 on debit MasterCard. Tube sock, $4. Paperclip, ballpoint pen, rubber band, tweezers, nasal spray, and a turkey baster, $14. The little things that get you through the day. Priceless. There are some things money can't buy. For everyday stuff, there's debit MasterCard.
I probably should turn the volume a little bit. The turkey baster line gets me every time. I play this hundreds of times by now. This was actually, and I got to look at my notes for this one, that was the 2006 Super Bowl. And that was almost 10 years after the last episode of MacGyver. Do you notice I never mentioned his name? And I heard several of you guys say, oh, that's MacGyver. MacGyver, the patron saint of preparedness. So here's the game I want to play with you all. And you kind of already played this a little bit. It's kind of like we did the handkerchief. Sorry about the echo there. Here we go. This is a good one. What am I holding up here? It's a zip top bag. So we are very nicely organized into tables. So this game will go nice and quickly. What I'm going to ask you folks to do is turn to the folks at your table. If you don't mind, I'm going to have you join this table so you won't be alone. And I'm going to ask you to join the table next to you so you won't be alone. So you'll be like, okay, good. So I want you to brainstorm all of the ways that, like MacGyver, you could MacGyver this bag. MacGyver's become a verb. I'm going to MacGyver that, right? So how would you use this bag to prepare ahead of time? I mean, you could put stuff in it. So what kind of stuff would you want in your bag? What's important to you? You could use this bag to respond to an incident. So notice MacGyver, he didn't use the tube sock for his feet. He used the tube sock as a way to slide down the line and get away from the bad guys, right? Or maybe we're in the recovery phase. Maybe it's been like a week. It's been 7 days since the earthquake happened or the tsunami happened. The zombies started marching. And we're here in the kitchen full of bags. Any size you want, as many bags as you want. Just for the purpose of this game, you can have as many bags as you want. And they can be as big or as small as you want. So turn to your folks at your table. And I know we're being recorded, but I also know we're all grown-ups here. Go ahead and be rude. Go ahead and be embarrassing. It's quite all right. I've had kids play this game. They're brilliant at it. And they do a really, really good job of coming. Some of the stuff is a little less than polite, perhaps. That's okay. It's an emergency, right? Okay, any questions about that?
Wait, the bags are for,
Anything you wish.
but it's to keep in the house, or it's the to-go bag, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. You can use the bag itself the way MacGyver used the sock. So how could you basically be really clever and sneaky and use the bag like MacGyver might? So the bag can have stuff in it, but I kind of encourage you to think of beyond. Think of the bag itself. So I was once kind of exposed to Zen Buddhism a long time ago. Think of it as a Zen cone. So think of it as basically being kind of like a little puzzle. The bag is what? The bag is more than the bag. The bag is not just the bag. The bag is beyond that. Okay, so I'm not a big Zen Buddhist, but you get the idea, right? So think of it as that kind of thing. Think of it as a logic puzzle. Okay, so I'm going to set a timer for only a little while. Go ahead and start now. Go for it.
Got to put in the bag. You can also use the bag as a pillow. So use it, use the thing as, not just putting it in the bag. You use it as a pillow, fill it with air. Yeah, there's the first time, before you open them up the first time.
Once you're open.
All right, so I only gave you guys, hold on one second, cancel. There we go.
There's ice here, Bob?
Very good. Yeah, it's funny. I've been doing these whistles since 2008. So safety whistle is like a whole topic unto itself. It's funny about that. Yeah. In fact, I don't talk about icing your phones as much as I used to. In case of emergencies, that's it for ice a phone for like emergency contact. Anyway, don't get me started. All right, so here's the fun part. First off, doing this on Zoom worked during COVID, but it's a lot more fun in a room. I gotta tell you, because then I could actually see everybody. I mean, you can see people that kind of on Zoom sometimes, but seeing the tables interact and such.
Money to put money in.
Good. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to point to a table, and I want one person from that table to say one thing. Just one thing it came up with. Now, we're only like 6, 7 tables in here, so it's not bad. I've done this for like 150 people. If by the time I get to your table, all the great ideas got used up, it's okay. It's a game. Don't worry about it. We're not scoring it. So I'm going to actually start. Okay, I'm going to start and say for the camera. This table back here, one thing.
Store your medication for your go bag.
Store your medications for your go bag. Excellent. This table, one thing.
Stuff it for a pillow.
Stuff it for a pillow. Nice. This table over here. Small flashlight. In fact, I actually realize now that I forgot to demonstrate that. The starter idea that we sometimes do. Do not put your microphone on your keyboard. See what this does? So it protects my phone flashlight, and it makes me way more visible. In a dark room, this is super impressive. So just repeat that to the microphone. Putting my mic flashlight, which might be my phone. I think that's me. Yep. Thank you. Seems appropriate, huh? That was my putting a flashlight in the center of the bag protects it, and also makes you way more visible. Okay, so where was I? This table over here.
Cat treats.
Cat treats! Protect your pets, awesome. Were you guys part of that table? One thing.
Put water in it.
Put water in it! A bag of water is fantastic. This table right here.
Poncho.
Poncho! A large bag makes a fantastic poncho.
Whistle.
Whistle! So you can take the bag and kind of like use a piece of the bag? Because I knew somebody who would take like a piece of grass and put it between her fingers, make a loud, loud whistle. Awesome. In fact, you may notice that the bag I'm using is very, very raggedy. You notice that this part got torn off? How many folks have ever gone camping? Guys on campers. I learned this from a camper. If you take this part of the bag, the part that seals, and rip it off, and wrap it around your fingers. Could you hold this for me? Can you hear that? It makes a fantastic scraper. They would use it to clean dishes campsite, to scrape the goop off the dishes. Plus, you could, tighten my fingers so they get too annoying. Use it as a fishing line, things like that. So I actually have spent a good 20 minutes just talking about the bag, which I'm not going to do today because we have to keep on going. But yes, go ahead.
So I have autoimmune type 1, so the first thing that I would need is all my medical supplies. So I think that when we're talking about preparing ourselves, if I don't have insulin, I'm dead. So
Yes.
So the things that we need to stay alive medically, to be sure that we have it.
And just to repeat for the camera and for the rest of the room, you need to have the things that you need to survive medically. You need to have your medications. You happen to mention that you have an autoimmune, so you have to have your medications. I think somebody else may have mentioned insulin. In fact, really fast actually, since you brought that up, I've done this training for a lot of different groups. So when I do this training for senior housing or senior centers, you already know what the number one answer is going to be to put in their bag, right? Medication. Teenagers, what do you think the first thing they want to put in their bag is? Bingo! You got that exactly correct. Cell phone, first thing they want to keep, which is a good way to keep your phone protected from elements, right? Now here's what's a little bit unusual. I find this fascinating. When I do this game with like 6, 7, 8, maybe 9-year-olds, there is a certain food item that they wish to have in their bags.
Goldfish crackers.
Goldfish crackers or Cheerios. For a long time it's Cheerios. I think it's comfort food. I'm only vaguely touching on this right now, but I actually have done presentations on emotional preparedness and mental wellness during disasters. That's a very, very important element. So having food that actually comforts you. So it's like, chocolate might melt, but it's things that make you feel better. Not food stuff that's icky or disgusting, right? Anyway. So basically the only point I'm trying to make here is that the grab-and-go bag can be a very inexpensive thing. In fact, this is actually from a stationery store. Somebody from Mills College went to the stationery store and got these little zipper organizer bags for your pencils and things. And she spread out a bunch of stuff all across the table. And right there on the spot, she had her residents make their own $5 bags, she called them. So it's like about $5 worth of stuff. It has like some gauze, it's got a flashlight, it's got some Band-Aids, it's got a pen and paper. In fact, the bags you guys are getting are going to have a Sharpie marker in them. Inside the bag that you guys will be. I'll be talking about that at the very end. But just be aware, it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. I've had seniors go around their unit and get a whole bunch of stuff just, there's where I put it. Just, top of closet, under the bed, kitchen drawer, boom, 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 drop in a bag, hey, I got it already. So feel free to repurpose stuff. So yeah, we have the list here. Backup batteries, don't forget your cord. Having the safety whistle, having a picture of a loved one or a special memento, having some kind of food or drink, having some kind of like a life straw, it's called, which allows you to filter your water. Things like that can all be really good. Make a stay box. So consider what you want to do for sheltering in place. So you want to basically have like your food and your water. There's actually a whole thing. Like I said, my wife grew up in Boulder Creek. Even before I was doing disaster stuff, back when I was just an ordinary tech guy doing tech support, she went and got a couple of bins from the hardware store, because we had the luxury of having a bit of a backyard. And then we put the camping equipment that we don't normally use in those bins. The idea being camping equipment should be outside the house, not inside the house, right? You're good at time. And then we also keep like some pet food and some water and food like that, and some rolling bins that we have in our backyard. So having stuff like that. Everything tends to be 3 days. So they're saying 3 gallons per person. What they're really saying is 1 gallon per person per day. That's a lot of water. Yeah. Nerd folks kind of know this kind of thing, right? I want to move away from the 3-day thing and do the 1 gallon per person per day thing. I think if you're planning this stuff out, 3 days is the bare minimum. I feel the bare minimum should be 7. So I know there's a website called 72hour.org, and there are all kinds of great tips about that. I would just take those tips and multiply them by at least 1.5. I really strongly recommend at least 7, because just look at what happened with the public safety power shut-offs. That was just the power. Some places were on power for 7 days. And that was not like the power lines went down, they just turned them off to prevent wildfires from happening. So, yeah, I'm a big advocate for the 7 thing. Yes, sir?
I would get water purification tablets and not try to store so
Yeah.
much water.
So water purification tablets, in fact, we actually went in a raffle, it's a water purification bucket. And it's got basically like a hose, and the lid has got like a little screw thing in it, and it's got a little bit of bleach, and the water purification tablets. The other thing I have, I got this as a Christmas present, they call it a life straw. And I actually showed this to my wife. I mentioned my wife works down in South San Francisco. She is a microbiologist. So I showed her that straw because I saw her favorite parasite in the world is Giardia. Look, Martha, it's got your favorite parasite on here. You get talking to biologists, it gets really icky real fast, right? She looked at it and said, yeah, I would do this. So if you ever watch those survival shows, there's one show called Naked and Afraid where people are basically naked, no clothes, and one item, and they're out in the wilderness trying to survive for multiple days. They always get sick on water. So I think the life straw would be able to. Now, it's not going to help you with metal. So you've got metals or pollutions in the water, that's not going to help, and it's going to have that.
What's a life straw?
So life straw is basically a straw that allows you to filter out stuff out of the water. So if you actually Google the phrase life straw, they'll come up with a product. So it's nice because as he points out, trying to store that much water is hard. The agency I worked for, we had a water cooler, so we actually had 3 more jugs than we actually would normally get. And one time the guy asked us why, he said, oh, we don't have water on site. Oh, that's brilliant, because the water got cycled all the time. It's a lot of water stored, and you got to drink it up at some point and replace it, right? Understanding, the things that you do. So besides actually practicing earthquake drills, my wife loves power tools. So us fastening things to the walls so they won't fall on us is like second nature for us. It's not a problem for her. So they do a little bit of, and there's actually a thing called My Hazards at Cal OES. Cal OES stands for California Office of Emergency Services. And they have a whole little My Hazards there. But again, if you go to Listos and or Earthquake Country Alliance, they have all kinds of great tips on how to do, they sometimes call it non-structural hazard mitigation, which is a fancy way of saying, basically making sure things don't fall on your head during the earthquake. I have a whole little mini training I've done on that one as well. Help others, the 5th and final step. If you only want to do one thing, meet your neighbor. And this is the thing, good, I'm glad I remember, because this is the thing I want to be growing about my thinking. I have heard this from FEMA. I've heard this from Red Cross. I've heard this from nonprofits. What do you think the one most important thing matters in a disaster? Let me rephrase that. What do you think is like one of the most important things that can matter in a disaster?
People around you.
People around you. They like to use the word relationships. Relationships matter. I heard this actually from somebody who was with the Episcopalian Response Corps, I think it was. He basically they were just starting to work on a disaster plan, and they had a very serious fire. It's like, oh gosh, we don't have a plan in place. We're just starting on it. It went brilliantly because they had relationships with the neighboring diocese. So you guys all have each other. You folks all have each other. So those relationships are going to make a huge, huge difference. A well-written plan and no relationships, not so great. A, haphazard plan and great relationships, you're probably golden. So just don't worry about making it perfect. Just get started on some of these things. Just write some lists down. Get some relationships down in place. Mapping your neighborhood. There's actually a program called Map Your Neighborhood, which is actually a very interesting sort of formal program about it. But I just like the more general sense of just kind of having a sense of where things are. So a book I read once a long time ago called How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes. One of the points they made was that Holmes, whenever he went to a place he didn't live, explored the alleyways and the stores and the back areas, and he had good memory, so he noticed where things were. So noticing where things are, just kind of having the safety eyes game goes great with kids. Oh, and for those of you that are NERT members, check with your local NERT or CERT, your neighborhood emergency response team, and grab somebody in the room that raised their hand on that question if you want to know what that is. So I want to thank you all very much for being here today. You'll see some big thank you. As you pointed out, gratitude is a very important point. Actually, let me do a quick check here on my speaking points and make sure I didn't forget something. Oxygen mask, good, I did mention all those points I wanted to cover, good.
There was something you wanted to
Yes.
add to?
What I have, they're called HERO, and it's like a little fire extinguisher.
Uh-huh.
It's supposed, doesn't need to be redone.
Huh.
It's for, they're little. And they also sell things that if there's a fire, you could protect yourself. So the Hero will put out all different kinds of fires except maybe oil.
Let me touch base with you about that after the class. I want to try and find out more about that, about the Hero. That's a great thing. Yes?
You forget something, you need to ask God's help before to do it.
Of course. Yes. As a matter of fact, one of the most important things in the safety kept in place kit, in the skip kit, I think, interestingly enough, is this little piece of paper. And on this piece of paper, it has a big section, and it holds up to the camera first. It says, remember. So remember the things that help you get yourself recentered. So when I talk about the emotional preparedness, some people have a prayer, some people have a meditation, some people have an affirmation, people have something that they will say or do that will help them get themselves recentered. So that's a very important thing.
What's in there and how do we get them?
You beat me to it, thank you. So I want to thank you all for attending. This is my contact information. I would like you to think of this, especially because we're in San Francisco. My dad was born in San Francisco, and when he was working in Alaska, we'd send him a care package of San Francisco sourdough bread and some Gallo salami. So think of this bag as your sourdough starter kit. This is your starter kit, because you know it's talked a lot about how, but first off, there's the bag itself. It's a very handy drawstring bag. You notice it's highly reflective. And inside this bag is a document protector to keep the information, that sheet of paper I showed you, it keeps it from getting like too wet or such. The handkerchief is a great way to go too, of course. It's got, look how small this is. It's basically like a small sleeping bag, cover bag. Like a little bee of a bag. It also has a whistle on it. It also has, I'm going to save that for last, the super fantastic Sharpie marker. My former colleague and boss actually could talk for hours about Sharpie markers. It's got this handy little hand crank radio, so you can put those radio stations we talked about on there. It's got this really nice hard shell first aid kit. So nice sturdy little first aid kit. Scott's got good stuff in this. And the one thing my wife got excited about, which is funny because usually I'm a tech nerd in the family, she calls it a Hydra. It's a cable, it's USB on one side and a whole bunch of the others on the other side. So give me your phone, give me a place to plug in a standard USB, I can help you charge your phone or your device. I will hang around for a while if you guys have any other questions or comments. How do you want them to get the bags, Michael?
First, let's have a big round of applause. Thank you.